Is an inspiration of gospel music also on Rainier Avenue Radio App. We give out free food each and every Saturday from 11 to 2. And so we want you to come on out and support us when we love on your community. And we also have a fish fry once a month. We want to raise funds, put back into the community. And so come on, support us. We need your love. And also, if you want to be connected with us, go to Rainier Avenue Radio.world, to the website, Facebook, Instagram, and God is. And as God is got a website, we need your help, community. So come on out and get your free food each and every Saturday it is. And so we asking for donation, whatever you feel to give from your heart to the mind. And as we're doing it right here for you, go to our website and touch love and give back. And so come on by 810 23rd Avenue, Rainier Avenue Radio.world, your community radio station and inspiration of all the things we do in your community.
We got the feeling now. Yeah.
R&B, soul, funk, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. We give you all that and more on Star Time. Join me, Paul Pearson, for a 2-hour trip through the history of R&B. A new episode every week on Wednesday at 2 p.m. Come and get the feeling on Star Time on Rainier Avenue Radio.world.
How would COVID vaccines work in your body? Here are 3 things to know. Number 1, a vaccine is basically a training session for the immune system. Vaccines teach the immune system to look for the key features of a virus. So when a virus does show up, it's ready to fight it off. Number 2, a vaccine gives your body a plan to recognize the virus. Then your immune system starts preparing by making antibodies, or fighter cells, that stay in your blood as protection in case the virus tries to invade. What this means is you get immunity against the disease without having to get sick first. Number 3, when enough people's bodies know how to fight off a virus, it has nowhere to go. That slows the spread. When people get a vaccine, we're able to stop the spread quicker and get closer to ending the pandemic. To learn more, go to covidvaccinewa.org. A message from the state of Washington.
You're listening to Rainier Avenue Radio.world. Check us out on social media. Facebook and Instagram, Rainier Avenue Radio.world, and on Twitter at Rainier Av Radio.
Welcome to Rainier Avenue Radio.world. This is our special edition of the impacts of the coronavirus on South Seattle and surrounding communities. It's a year and a half of doing these shows. Started back on March 13th and dare I say it, 2020. Got a great show for you this afternoon. We're going to touch on a lot of things. We're going to touch on rental assistance, which is, of course, a big issue right now. The moratorium will be lifted, and there's a lot of controversy about this, and from those who own homes and rent homes, from those who are renters. Anyway, we're going to be talking about rental assistance and your opportunity to get some rental assistance. Also joining us in the program a little bit later will be Sydney Brownstone. Sydney Brownstone is a journalist for the Seattle Times, reporter for the Seattle Times, and works specifically on the issue of homelessness. She's joined us in the past, and that's wonderful insight into how the coronavirus had, and was going to impact those who are unsheltered in a number of different ways. So Sydney Brownstone will be joining us. Also, Hayward Evans, who is on the MLK committee, will be joining us to talk about an event that's taking place tomorrow, which is the Remembrance of the March on Washington. It's like the 58th, I believe. The March on Washington happened in '63, and there will be a remembrance of this at the MLK Park right there on MLK. It'll be taking place at 5:30, and it will be safely social distance. However, if you would rather just go ahead and watch, you'll be able to do that right here on Rainier Avenue Radio.world. So that's going to be happening. And wait, you say, but wait, there's more. Also joining me on the program will be Pat McCarthy, Executive Director of Metro League, Seattle Public Schools Sports. And last year, I thought it was pretty amazing that they were able to pull off getting our youth engaged and active again. Granted, this was a tough situation. This had never been done before. And so there was, if you remember, the balance of weighing up, okay, people gathering, people getting together, and then our normal, need as humans for interaction and socialization and interactivity, companionship. And that wasn't just on the sports field. That was in life. That was in businesses. That was in seeing friends. That was in seeing families. But yes, if you're in high school and you're not around your friends, and another big part of what you do is you have sports. Sports, people even pro sports, cities galvanize around sports. And it's the same thing for high school, for anybody who's forgotten. But if you know what it's like. Well, I thought that the Metro League did a great job of making this happen with everything that was done last year. Well, here we are again this year. And as you know, the mask mandate is back in place. We are in the fourth surge of coronavirus here in the state. And school's about to start. That in itself has been a hot button issue around the country. And so then again, you throw on top of that, but wait a minute, got sports. What's going to happen? Well, we've got the guy here who's going to be able to, tell you a little bit about how this is going to work. There may not be a silver bullet to all of this, but I'm sure, as he always does, he'll just give it to us straight. And he's a big advocate for sports, but also for safety. So I'd like to welcome to the program, Mr. Pat McCarthy. What's up, Pat?
Hey, Tony. It's good to see you, man.
Good to see you too again, my man. How are you doing, first of all? How are you?
It's pretty busy these days, and but we're doing okay. It's a time where we're gearing up for the start of sports, and it's always anytime when you do that, and any year it's always drinking out of a fire hydrant. But this year it's even more than that, as you know.
And Pat, I really meant that personally, but at this point in time, that's probably consuming your personal life as well. Huh?
Oh, absolutely, Tony. This is like, it seems like it's 24/7 right now. So, yeah.
Well, welcome to the program, Pat. Again, my congratulations on the effort, you, the team, Tara, AJ, everybody else. I don't want to forget anybody. I'm big team effort. You were the leader of this effort, though, and you pulled it off last spring. And I don't have with me right now the exact numbers of students who actually ended up contracting the virus, but I don't even know if it was in double figures. You know what I mean, for football. And but far as I know, why don't you tell us about that? How did last year end up working out? How did it, after it was all said and done, and having had that experience now of having done it in multiple sports, how did things turn out?
Tony, I'll just start that we were really, really proud of being able to pull this off last year. I'll go back to February of last year, and in February we were sitting with no sports, no activities, and really not knowing what we were going to do. And we were waiting for the state to tell us if we could, if we couldn't. So we were really in a precarious situation last February. Finally got the A-OK, and at that point it was really it was difficult. I'll be honest, it was difficult to get things launched. And I want to publicly thank all of our athletic directors and our staff for the countless hours of planning and replanning to get things going, because we had been making plans to start up, let's say, a year ago at this time, but as you know, that got delayed, and we were delayed all the way to February. And at that point, we were really unsure if we were able to even get anything going. And so what we did is we rolled up our sleeves and we put together a plan for the Metro League under the guidance of the Department of Health and the WIA. And we came up with a 2-season model. Normally we're in 3 seasons, but we came in with a 2-season model and put sports in those 2 seasons. And we felt that the athletes in the Metro League would get a better experience with a longer season than what a lot of the other leagues and so forth were doing around the state. They were trying to do a 3-season model, and when you plan those kind of models, it was a pretty short season, like 5 weeks. And as we thought about it in the environment that we're in with COVID and possibly having teams having to take a break because they've got COVID issues and so forth, we just felt that a longer season would be better. And as it turned out, it was the right decision to make, because the feedback that we got from students and parents and so forth, that they were really thrilled that they were able to get out and participate. As you remember, they were sitting at home isolated for so long. We were hearing the mental anguish that kids were under and parents were under and so forth. So we felt that we were offering and providing a really valuable service last year to our student athletes. And as we went through the seasons, that first season was pretty tough, but we were able to make it work, and everybody really, really enjoyed it. And we were able to finish up our second season right around just before graduation. So as we looked at the seasons, we were pretty proud of what we were able to offer. We were able to offer every sport for every kid, and they had a pretty good season around it. And in the Metro League, obviously there was no state playoffs or district playoffs last year, but in the Metro League, with it being as competitive as a league as it is, we tried to put together a culminating event around each sport. So kids that were competing in those sports were able to enjoy some type of culminating event in each sport. And I think that was really appreciated as well for everybody. So to sum up, Tony, it was an awful lot of work, and we were able to pull it off, and we're really proud of the fact that we were able to do that and provide that with our student athletes. And that's what we're here for. We're here to serve our students, and that's what we're going to do.
And some really memorable moments last year. I know we're rooting for all schools, but there were some really great games last year and some outstanding performances. And so it was in both boys and girls sports. And so that was really good to see that some of those memories that will last forever.
You know what, Tony? There's always great games in the Metro League, no matter what you're looking at. But you're exactly right. We had some outstanding competitions. We had some outstanding athletic performances in every sport. And take the outstanding and great performances away. The basic is that they were able to participate and they were able to play. And at that time, that was just crucial to get that going for our kids, for their emotional learning and welfare. So.
All right. Well, Pat, I'm going to ask a question that will be preceded by a little monologue by me. The question is ultimately going to be, what's up for this year?
Just a question like that, huh?
But preceding that question, Pat, and just to set the table, again, we're in our 4th stage of coronavirus. We've already had a couple of different changes in mandates, where once we were taking masks off and we were told things were going to be okay. Things were opening back up. Now we're putting masks back on. We see that vaccination itself, the issue of vaccination, the science versus politicization of the vaccine. Do you have to be vaccinated? Do you not have to be vaccinated? What are the safety? Those who are getting the brunt of the COVID Delta variant right now are those who are unvaccinated. Again, as you move closer to the school year, you're dealing with that issue. And then we're also at the same time, once again, taking a look at what happens with our sports and where do we draw the line, what becomes safe, at what point does mental health, because this is such an important part of this experience in high school, become more important to where, we've got to do this. We've seen what's happened. And again, I'm going to bring this up, and there's a ton of things to bring up about this, Pat, but, just a lot of kids from my personal experience that I talk to, this is an opportunity for them to further their education, to be seen, and that everybody's not a D1 player, but there's some awesome D2, D3 schools out there that take players and helps them further their education. Okay, so that's just a few of the things on my table, and I know that all of them are on your table, and even more. So when I say what's going on for this year, I know that's a big, broad question, which includes our parents going to attend games, but I just want to open these floodgates so that I could stop talking and we can just hear the big picture from you, Pat.
Yeah. You're right, Tony. There's a lot to it. And so, one, we are planning on sports for this year. We're planning on our normal sports season. So we have begun our fall season. And in fall season, that's the volleyball, football, girls soccer, girls swimming, golf for us, and so forth. So we've got our fall sports. They have started. And so we have kids out practicing now and so forth. The Department of Health, and you're right, Tony, that the guidelines and so forth have changed. And if we go back in times, they've changed quite a bit over time. And we'll expect more changes in the future. But what we do in athletics is we follow the Department of Health guidelines and what they put forth. And they came out with an announcement, an update on August 11th. And the WI is our state organization. They publish those guidelines for all of the high schools in the state. And so we are all looking at those guidelines and following those guidelines to provide high school sports to our athletes. And so those guidelines are what we are going to follow. And in those guidelines, and I'll just, Tony, what I'm going to do is just kind of generally tell you what's up, because there's some discussions with our district right now that are going on in saying, hey, do we need to increase any guidelines and so forth for our kids and our families. So for right now, outdoor sports such as football and girls soccer, those kinds of sports, the athletes don't need to be in masks. They're able to compete without wearing a mask and so forth. When those teams are not practicing and not in competitions, and when they're just having meetings and so forth, then they should be in masks. If they're close together, they should be in masks then. But for practicing and in contests, they don't need to be in mask outdoors. Indoors, however, is a different story. So take volleyball, for example. In the sport of volleyball and going indoors, the guidelines are more specific and more stringent. And so fans will be asked to be in masks, so that they need to be in masks when they're indoors. Our coaches and our scoring officials and trainers, they also need to be in masks because they're indoors. The athletes themselves, when they're playing, do not have to be in masks. But when they're on the sidelines and so forth, they will be in masks. So there's a difference between outdoor and indoor sports there. And then there's also sports that have been identified by the Department of Health that are considered high-risk indoor sports. Those sports have been identified as basketball, wrestling, cheer, and water polo. And pretty much we don't offer water polo in my department, but for cheer, boys and girls basketball, and wrestling, those are winter sports for us. We will treat those sports, again, those are sports that are indoor, high-risk sports. And so the Department of Health has said that we have to have a testing program in place for those athletes and coaches that are not vaccinated. And so if a student is not vaccinated, we'll have to have a regular testing program for those athletes. And then they're able to compete without having masks on during basketball season. So, and again, indoor sports, we're going to have everybody in a mask that is not playing. But in those specific sports that are high risk, there is a testing program that will be in place for those students that are not vaccinated. And we had this is similar to last year, and I don't know if you remember this, but last year for wrestling, they came out with the same type of mandate, is that wrestlers last year needed to be tested and so forth. So we were able to put together a testing program for our wrestling athletes in the Metro League, and that went really well. And we were able to manage that, and the wrestlers were able to compete and so forth. So in a snapshot, Tony, that's what we have going. You know, as you know, the Department of Health, they make shifts every so often, depending on if they need to and so forth. And as they shift, we pay attention to that, and we will shift and make sure that we're complying with all of their guidelines and protocols that make it safe for our student athletes to participate.
Is there any vaccine requirement? Are there separate rules for student athletes who are vaccinated as opposed to, or do you even bring that up? Does that become part of the equation?
It is part of the equation in the fact that we don't need to test vaccinated students. So take for basketball, Tony, if we find out and we can verify that certain students are already vaccinated, they don't have to be part of the testing program for basketball players. So that will be part of our process. Okay.
And so you have to show proof of vaccination.
Yes, you will have to show some type of proof to us that you've been vaccinated. Once we have that proof and so forth, then those kids that have been vaccinated, they aren't subject to the testing program that we're required to do. So.
All right. And I'm not, at this point, I'm not politicizing it, advocating mask or unmask. I will say this, playing in a mask is tough. It's just tough. I mean, maybe for me and for people I've talked to, and for students I've talked to, maybe for some folks playing in a mask makes no difference whatsoever. But the question would come up, you know, in a sport like football, as an example, where there is close proximity. There is breathing. There is all sorts of stuff going on. And following the science, do we know what the science says about situations like that? You know, and you're testing for vaccines, and some are going to be vaccinated, but if you're unvaccinated, you still get to participate. But we do know that you can still have the vaccine and transmit it if you're vaccinated. And you know, Pat, I'm not trying to get you with a gotcha moment, bro. I just got to ask the question. So, what do we know that about the science that says it's okay to play football without a mask or wrestling without a mask?
Yeah. Well, Tony, you know, obviously I'm not a scientist, and I don't know the scientific answers to your question. I know what the Department of Health gives us as guidelines and so forth. Okay, and so what they've told us as of now is that football, which is an outdoor sport, those kids are able to compete without a mask on right now. And that's different from last year. Last year, as you recall, the football kids were asked to put on masks and so forth and compete in masks. And I totally agree with you. It's just that what we asked our kids to do last year and competing with masks and so forth in basketball and some of these sports was really trying, you know, and they did it though. They did it, and they were able to do it and so forth. And for that, I was really proud of them for doing that. This year, the Department of Health has said, hey, you know, outdoors, we don't need you to be in masks. You do need to be socially distanced on the sidelines. So we're going to be asking our sideline players to be distanced at least 3 feet apart and so forth. And we do the best we can with that. But in terms of your science question and stuff, I'm not the scientist. I'm the person that is administrating this program as our sports program as it's outlined by the Department of Health, and that's what we're going to continue to do.
Well, I appreciate you coming on, Pat. And again, like I said, you always give us straight answers, and I appreciate that. I do want to talk a little bit sports, though.
Yeah, go for it, man.
The Metro Classic
Absolutely.
is coming up again. Let's talk a little bit about the Metro Classic first. Maybe give a little background on it, and then we want to know who's participating this year.
Yes, yeah, that's great, Tony. So we do have our Metro Football Classic coming up. It's on week 3, and I got to check the dates here so I don't give our listeners the
17th to the 18th. I'm not exactly sure. I know that I can find out, but I think it's the 17th.
Yeah. It's our 3rd week of football, and we've got a great slate of games. We've got two games on Friday and 2 games on Saturday, and as I get to those games and those matchups, this classic was started I think 4 or 5 years ago, and it was the brainchild of one of our former coaches, Joey Thomas. And Joey Thomas, as you may recall, was the Garfield football coach, and he had the idea, hey, let's put together some teams, back to back and together, and create a group of games where fans can come in and watch football and enjoy high school football and see back to back games and really good games. And so that's what we did. We tried to recognize some people, so we have legends, somebody that we call a legend of the game. So we'll be making an award out this year. I'm not going to tell you who it is yet, but we have somebody we're going to recognize at the event and as our legends. And we do some things. We have some little giveaways for the kids for participating, and we'll have some announcements out here real soon about the game. For our schools that are going to be participating in it, we've got O'Day, who is going to play. Let's see, I believe it's. Do you guys have that up by any chance?
Yep. Yes. As a matter of fact, here it comes.
Is Daniel gonna
the world's best producer?
Daniel D.
Bellis.
What's he got for us?
We'll see here. Kind of magic he's gonna. There he goes.
Okay. So O'Day is playing Lake Stevens. That's our very first matchup. Okay. And then I believe Cleveland and Mount Baker are playing the nightcap on Friday. And then on Saturday, we've got Garfield, who's taking on Davis out of Tacoma, and Rainier Beach is going to play Nooksack Valley. So we've got 4 great games that are going to be happening, four great football games, and 4 of our really good programs. And it should be a really exciting couple days of football. So if you're looking for high school football and watching some quality teams and coaches and athletes, that's a great way to do it. It will be at Memorial Stadium, and that first game is starting at 5:00 on that Friday.
And we will certainly be there bringing those games to you. If you can't make it out, if for whatever reason you prefer to be in the safety of your home right now, we still got you. So check those out. Pat, again, man, I really appreciate you taking the time to come here. Again, thanks for everything you and the staff do for our students. You to some extent are behind the scenes. People know it happens, but they don't know who makes it happen and how it happens. So again, just a big shout out to yourself and
that's the way it should be, Tony. We always have our student athletes at the forefront. We do this for them. Okay, so it's we're servicing our student athletes. Oh, there you go, D-Money.
And I want to give you the chance for final words here too, as Daniel puts that up on the screen. So next Saturday at 7:00, we'll be at the Southeast Athletic Complex. Again, another the Seattle-Tacoma game. Rainier Beach taking on Mount Tahoma at Southeast Athletic Complex, which is at Rainier Beach. So, Pat, I do want to give you an opportunity for final words here. Anything that you'd like to share?
Hey, thanks, Tony. The one thing I would like to share with your listeners is that we're working with our officials association. The pool of officials is down tremendously. So, we're working with our officials to, arrange games and so forth. So just a shout out, if you're interested in officiating and stuff, contact me and I can get you to the Officials Association. But it's really critical right now. They're down well over 50% of their officials pool, which is impacting us being able to provide games and so forth that are officiated. So just a shout out, if you're interested in officiating or have an interest, give me a shout and I can get you to the right place. And the last word is, Tony, I really appreciate Rainier Avenue. You guys are a great partner with us in broadcasting a lot of our events. So I encourage you guys, all of our listeners, to tune into Rainier Avenue Radio.
And we're going to do something special, too, to get the word out about referees if you need that, because there's a whole lot of folks who sit in front of their TV and make calls. Well, I know you got to go through some training, but if you want to be part of high school sports, if you need them, I'm not sure what the protocols are, but I think we got a lot of referees out there who don't know that they could be involved in the game. So we'll get the word out about that and see who we need to put them in touch with so that they can take whatever training and turn into actual referees rather than armchair referees. Let's get some folks out there. Thanks again, Pat. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah. Good to see you, Tony, as always.
Likewise.
All right.
We'll be right back with the impacts of the coronavirus on South Seattle and surrounding communities with, I guess, Hayward Evans from the MLK Remembrance, the March on Washington Remembrance. And this is the most important one, according to everything that's being put out since '63 because of the attack on voter rights. We're also going to talk about how COVID has impacted civil rights and the movement of civil rights. We'll be back right after this.
This is Paul Pearson, host of Star Time. And when I'm not helping bad girls set up their websites, I'm listening to Rainier Avenue Radio.world.
Welcome to the coronavirus pandemic. I'll take coronavirus for 100. Fever, chills, shortness of breath, loss of taste or smell. What is stay at home and isolate? Correct. Coronavirus for 200. Inability to stay awake, persistent pain or pressure in chest, trouble breathing. What is seek immediate help? Correct.
Coronavirus for 500.
Crippling and particularly dead infectious disease eliminated the United States with vaccination.
What is the polio vaccine?
Correct.
I'll take coronavirus for 700.
The Daily Double! Should I take the coronavirus vaccine?
Wait. Hold up. This is not a game. It's time for serious discussions. We have coronavirus vaccines, but not everyone is comfortable taking them. Here's the facts. Based on what has been proven about vaccines for other diseases, COVID-19 vaccine may help keep you from getting seriously ill, even if you do get the virus. Getting vaccinated also may protect people around, particularly those at greater risk for severe illness from COVID-19. We don't yet have all of the answers. Get informed, talk to your healthcare physician, and make the right decision for you. This is a message supported by the Washington State Department of Health.
Hello, listener. What's important to you about what's going on in your community? Are you interested? Are you concerned? In any case, I invite you to tune into my show, Seattle Here and Now, on Rainier Avenue Radio.world. Why? I will be covering a wide range of topics important to you and impacting the community. Each show will have a special guest or guests to share with you information on a variety of subjects that are happening here and now in Seattle. I promise I will work hard to make my show informative, interesting, and entertaining. Be sure to listen to Seattle Here and Now on Rainier Avenue Radio.world.
If you or a family member are 55 or over and need nursing home level care, but want to keep living where you are, check out Providence Elder Place PACE. This program offers healthcare, housing, transportation, and recreational activities. There are no co-pays or deductibles, and it's covered through Medicare and Medicaid. Providence Elder Place PACE works to keep you healthy and in your home. Call 206-320-5325 or visit providence.org Elder Place. Providence.org Elder Place.
You're listening to Rainier Avenue Radio.world. Check us out on social media. Facebook and Instagram, Rainier Avenue Radio.world, and on Twitter at Rainier Av Radio.
Dealing with COVID-19 is uncharted territory, and everyone has different challenges. People may feel anxious, down, or overwhelmed. For some, these feelings can lead to changes in sleep patterns, an increased use of alcohol or drugs, or withdrawing from the people around them. If you know someone who's having a hard time coping, you can help by reaching out to talk and listen. To learn more about how you can help someone in need, call the Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 800-273-TALK. Brought to you by the state of Washington.
Rainier Avenue Radio presents All Music, All Day Saturday. Music, all day Saturday.
This is Edwin Bailey, Bulldog Blue.
Jazz from the Cabinets.
That's right. It's time once again for Jazz from the Cabinets with Big Poppy.
Start Time.
Thanks for tuning in. My name is Paul Pierce. This is Start Time.
Saturdays, all music, all day. Reggae Hour. K-Fox Night.
Looking for the perfect beat? Yeah, it's the beat of the box.
Fresh Juice with D-Money in the group.
Myself, D-Money.
Nice Size Patron.
Taylor Hart.
Resispencia. The Northwest Rap Game.
DJ Medina. Chad Cheddar. Northwest Rap Game.
Sergio Lacour's Love Line.
It's Sergio's Love Lines with Sergio LaCour. Go to the phone line. Tell them who we talking.
Sea Monster Radio. Mo Jams. It's your jam.
We're live. Welcome to Mo Jam Mondays. This is KZ of KZ Music Media. Caller Goddess for Mo Jam Mondays.
Just my opinion. God is inspiration all day and all night. Saturdays on Rainier Avenue Radio App.
This is Paul Pearson, host of Star Time. And when I'm not being reprimanded by traffic cops, I'm listening to Rainier Avenue Radio.world.
Connect to your Seattle at Pier 62 with free events and programs all summer long. Family-friendly activities like music, art, dance, yoga, storytelling, fitness classes, and much more. All free for you to enjoy. Visit waterfrontparkseattle.org for the full summer schedule. That's waterfrontparkseattle.org. Connect to your Seattle at Pier 62.
Dealing with COVID-19 is uncharted territory, and everyone has different challenges. People may feel anxious, down, or overwhelmed. For some, these feelings can lead to changes in sleep patterns, an increased use of alcohol or drugs, or withdrawing from the people around them. If you know someone who's having a hard time coping, you can help by reaching out to talk and listen. To learn more about how you can help someone in need, Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 800-273-TALK. Brought to you by the state of Washington.
Welcome back to Rainier Avenue Radio.world. It's me, Tony B. This is our special broadcast of the impacts of the coronavirus on South Seattle and surrounding communities. If you are just tuning in, you missed a great conversation with Pat McCarthy, Executive Director of the Metro League, Seattle Public Schools Athletic Director. Sports will be taking place this year. Apparently, come hell or high water, sports will be happening here. The rules of engagement may fluctuate with whatever the Department of Health says has to be done at that time, but they will take place this year. And if it's an outdoor sport, unmasked is the name of the game. I did ask a question about, the science, whatever, what makes it safe, especially for a sport like football. And whatever it is, the Department of Health says, good. Players on the sidelines will be masked. Players who are not participating in the game will be masked. Coaches will be masked, but those who are on the field will not be. And, I don't know how y'all feel about that. Playing in a mask is tough. The other reality of that is that even if you are vaccinated, you can still transmit this contagion. And but we're waiting for our guest to join us from the Remembrance of MLK, the March on Washington that's going to be taking place this Saturday at 5:30. And we're waiting for a guest to join us. So I'll tell you what, let's take a quick break. And we'll come back and we're going to tell you all about this event, and then also, talk a little bit about how COVID has impacted civil rights. We'll be back right after this.
This is Paul Pearson, host of Star Time. And when I'm not stopping a Mercer Island street brawl, I'm listening to Rainier Avenue Radio.world.
All of us have struggled with the COVID-19 pandemic. Many of our communities have been particularly hard hit. Some things definitely need to change, but a few things should stay the same, like protecting your child from serious diseases you can prevent now. Preventable diseases like measles, mumps, and whooping cough. Is camp, childcare, or in-person school on your family's agenda? Give your child a healthy and safe summer and school year by making sure they're up to date on vaccinations and well child visits. You have the power to protect. Call your healthcare provider to find out what vaccinations your child is due for and make an appointment today. If you need help finding a provider? Visit parenthealth123.org or call the Help Me Grow Washington hotline at 1-800-322-2588. An interpretation is available. All of us have struggled through the COVID-19 pandemic. Many of our communities have been particularly hard hit. Some things definitely need to change, but a few things should stay the same, like protecting your child from serious diseases you can prevent now. Preventable diseases like measles, mumps, and whooping cough. Is camp, childcare, or in-person school on your family's agenda? Give your child a healthy and safe summer and school year by making sure they're up to date on vaccinations and well child visits. You have the power to protect. Call your healthcare provider to find out what vaccinations your child is due for and make an appointment today. If you need help finding a provider? Visit parenthealth123.org or call the Help Me Grow Washington hotline at 1-800-322-2588. An interpretation is available.
Yo, what's good? It's D-Money, and you should definitely check out Fresh Juice every Wednesday, 9 to 11 Pacific, right on Rainier Avenue Radio.
With pint-sized Patron, P-Treasy the Don, y'all be sure to clean your mirrors as we play brand new hip-hop and R&B from locals and worldwide.
ID yourself, a.k.a. Malcolm Flex. Make sure you check out Fresh Juice every Wednesday, Pacific Standard Time from 9 to 11 p.m.
And to get those exclusive interviews that we be doing.
Sipping a brand new fresh juice every single week.
Yeah. Every Wednesday, 9 to 11, Rainier Avenue Radio.
Yeah.
This is Paul Pearson, host of Star Time. And when I'm not translating the lyrics of Boogie Oogie Oogie for bored Europeans, I'm listening to Rainier Avenue Radio.world.
Welcome back to Rainier Avenue Radio.world. Joining me on the program now to talk about the 58th Remembrance of the March on Washington. Again, the most important since that first in 63. And I'm going to let our guest tell you why that is. I'd like to welcome to the program Mr. Eddie Rye Jr. Mr. Rye, how are you, sir?
I'm doing fine. Hayward Evans is standing by. But I do want to say that if you look at what's happening right now with voter suppression legislation being introduced in 42 states, I think it's actually passed in 18. And you look at the fact that in 1963, the whole march was about jobs and freedom. They said 200,000. Some people say 250,000. I heard Dr. King give his "I Have a Dream" speech. But because of all the activism going back to the Montgomery to Selma March and all the other atrocities that many of the civil rights workers faced, Goodman, Cheney, and Schwerner, for example, you had the police and the Klan looking for Congressman Benny Thompson, who was a member of SNCC, and Julian Bond just said he had the most dangerous job in SNCC because he was in the Mississippi Delta. So the Klan was looking for him in pickup trucks, and the sheriff was too. So right now, like I was listening to some of Dr. King's old speeches, and one of the things we have to remember is that people died, Black people died for this right to vote. As a matter of fact, some of our white brothers and sisters also met the same fate. So it's nothing that we can take lightly. We must really stand up. We got to show up, stand up, and speak up for our rights. Not only is it just voting rights, it's our civil rights in general. And if you look at the fact that we now have a Supreme Court that's gutted the Voting Rights Act. And, I mean, I feel sorry for the folks from Afghanistan and stuff. And, the whole cry now is they helped us, we got to help them. Well, hell, we've been helping for 400 years, died in every war. And all the gains we made in civil rights, voting rights and stuff are being gutted. And as though that African descendants of the United States enslaved were never here, never did anything. As a matter of fact, I had one white pundit tell me that blacks want something for nothing. And I told him, just give us a down payment on the first 254 years of slavery. Had it not been for slavery, this country would not be the economic power it is today. And had it not been for black folks going defending this country around the world, it would not be as free as it is today. And African descendants of the United States enslaved are the most patriotic group of Americans in this country. How many people would go to wars and segregated armies and come back to segregation, humiliation, and domination and not say anything about it? Now, like Dr. King say, we can't wait any longer. We see our rights that are being rescinded on a daily basis. We have gerrymandering going on, trying to discount our votes. And then the fact that, it's people are holding some people that were involved in the January 6th violent attempt to overthrow the United States government on the day that the electoral ballots were being counted to certify the elections. And some of these people are talking about they are patriots. But I am happy that through the leadership of Congressman Benny Thompson, chair of the House Homeland Security Committee, he will find out who was involved. And, the sad thing, Tony B, is that to a lot of people, it doesn't make any difference. It's like with COVID right now. You got these governors in Georgia and Alabama and Louisiana and Mississippi saying that, they don't have to wear a mask and their hospitals are overflowing. And I just hope that in this state, I hope Governor Inslee will not allow anyone to come in here and occupy a hospital bed who did not get the vaccination, who did not believe in masking. And I just think, I have to be very honest with you, and Black people, really, I just don't know what to say. When you saw COVID-19 first hit, who dying at a disproportionate rate? Black people and Latinos. So that tells me something. People have a right to do whatever they want to do. As a matter of fact, the young lady got on my case because I asked her if she got the vaccine. But what you have to look at is 98% of the people who were in the hospital did not get vaccinated. That's a fact. That's a scientific fact. So,
Mr. Rye, I want to get to, and again, my guest is Mr. Eddie Rye Jr. And I want to continue this conversation. I do. Again, the remembrance is taking place 5:30 to 7 on Saturday at MLK Park. And we'll be broadcasting. You've got some a great lineup of folks there. And I want to get back to what you said earlier, because you said some folks are unaware. So you went by that pretty quickly. You said our voting rights are getting gutted, or civil rights are getting gutted. Now, for a lot of people, they may say, huh? What do you mean? I would know about this if this was taking place. Explain to us why you say our civil rights and our voter rights are getting gutted, and why you call this, again, the most important remembrance of the March on Washington since '63.
Well, if you look at the acts that the Supreme Court has taken in terms of the voter protection, that's what I'm referring to. When you look at the fact that polling places, the polls to the souls to the polls, having people, not many polling places in Black communities. And you just saw in Georgia last election how people were lined up for hours to vote, particularly in the Black areas. The fact that you can't give people water or any kind of nourishments while they stand in the hot sun waiting to vote. These obstacles, in addition to gerrymandering and the voter suppression legislation that's going around, they're talking about having state legislators, controlled primarily by Republicans in a lot of states, being able to have the authority to overturn an election. So, and I think that Congressman James Clyburn hit it right, is that some of the states are really violating federal law and the Constitution. Now, so what I'm saying is people really have to get engaged in terms of, You might not think much of it here. Now, here's a couple of things that's happening in Seattle, just redistricting. They're talking about putting all of the 7th congressional district in Seattle, and also want to put Sharon Tomiko Santos's her entire district, 37, in Seattle, which would eliminate the people of color that she represent in Skyway and Renton and other places like that in South Seattle, where we are now. We're not in the central area in dominant numbers anymore. As a matter of fact, it's a shadow of what we used to be. So those are some of the things that we have to be cognizant of and raise questions about in terms of raising these questions with elected officials and also participating. Now, a lot of things right now are going to be Zoom, and I think it's going to be that way for the next year. I'm really afraid to see what's going to happen with these schools with students not being able to vaccinate it, and then having these fights about masks. So, but anyway, on Saturday, we're encouraging everyone to wear a mask. We're outside. We're encouraging everyone to wear a mask. And the people who are speaking, naturally, they can take their mask off. We're encouraging that. We're encouraging social distancing. And we poo-pooed any kind of food trucks anywhere anyone could gather, because this Delta variant is serious. And there's also a couple of other variants that's coming along the highway. So in terms of the event on Saturday, there are several people who will be recognized. Dr. Ben Danielson will be getting the Odessa Brown Award. Dr. Ben has been in the headlines lately because of what happened out at Seattle Children's Hospital. He and Lenny and Marilyn Wilkins, the Lenny Wilkins Foundation, Mickey Flowers, Danella Godot, and others in the Guild raised $125 million to build a facility at Othello Station. And Dr. Danielson has been selected to co-chair a statewide task force last year by Governor Inslee. 2 weeks ago, County Executive Dow Constantine appointed him to co-chair a committee that's going to see the distribution of $25 million to communities of color in King County. And he's going to be on the program early because I think he's raising the flag at the Seahawks games on Saturday at 7 o'clock. So it's too bad that the hospital didn't see his leadership. Also, I mentioned Lenny and Marilyn Wilkins. There'll also be, and I don't have everything in front of me like I should have, but I'll tell you one thing, I'm not going to let that be excused because I'm going to get it. This is too important. Senator Adam Klein is getting the Sam Smith Outstanding Elected Official Award. Adam Smith was responsible for getting King County named for Martin Luther King Jr. He introduced legislation 9 times between 1999 and 2005 until it finally passed, and Governor Christine Gregoire came up to the Martin Luther King Jr. Courthouse and signed the legislation into law. In addition to that, we have excuse me 1 minute here. Mian Rice is getting the Aki Carosa Public Service Award. So you can see the awards also represent many civil rights leaders of various colors, nationalities, because they participated in the civil rights struggle. As a matter of fact, people don't know it, but the Japanese American Citizens League was in Selma in 1965, and they went back 50 years later in 2015. Reverend Dr. Robert L. Jeffrey will receive the Roberto Maestas Community Leadership Award. You know what Reverend Jeffrey's been doing. You've been covering him very well. Lenny and Marilyn Wilkins, that's the Bernie Whitebeard Living Legacy Award for Lenny and Marilyn Wilkins. The Edwin T. Pratt Community Service Award will go to the president and CEO of the Northwest African American Museum, Lanisha de Bartolomé, and the Odessa Brown Award wants to go to Dr. Ben Danielson. And I mentioned the NAACP Political Action Committee will also be honored for their work in terms of voter education and voter registration. So we'll have spoken word by Tia Yarborough. Josephine Howell will do Lift Every Voice and Sing. Lady A will also do a number. And, we're expecting, and with the help of Rainier Avenue Radio, we know that a lot of people will be watching this. And I just think that This August 28th, as you indicated, is the most significant one since 1963.
Let me ask you a question here, Mr. Rice. Sorry to interrupt you because we're almost out of time here. You mentioned mask, social distancing, and one of the questions I wanted to ask you, because you are a person who has done this. What you have done in for civil rights and for the city. How has COVID and how has this whole pandemic impacted our civil rights? When you say that it's getting gutted, part of this is happening, is or just coincidence on the watch during the pandemic when people are isolated, people don't communicate as much. What is your what are your thoughts? What are your ideas? What are your suggestions about how COVID has impacted, or has it, in your opinion, impacted our civil rights, our being in this country?
Well, we should be, first of all, given the downtime that we have and the time we spend inside, we should do more. I mean, there are a lot of documentaries on the civil rights struggle. I would encourage young people and parents and OGs like myself to share that with younger people. Let them see what it was like. And I think that really drives a point home. When people see the brutality, when they see what the people did in Alabama, Lester Maddox handed out axe handles to beat up E.J. Brisker and Julian Bond. And like I mentioned before, Viola Liuzzo, a lady that came down from Detroit, was a freedom rider. After she appeared at the Capitol, Montgomery, Alabama, at the Capitol, a few hours later, she was dead. There were white clergy members that died. And all this was about, at that particular time, helping African descendants of the United States enslaved. So I know a lot of people like to put us all together, but once again, we've been here 400 years. It wasn't that many other people here when we were involved with the civil rights movement. We did have, like I said, the Japanese American Citizens League and some other members of the clergy were there, but it wasn't that many other minority people here or other people of color here. And the fact is that we can't let anybody, as far as I'm concerned, any new immigrant coming to getting a U.S. citizenship should have a mandatory class of Black history, because they want to, right away, you're already hearing about the critical race theory and how they're sanitizing books and making slaves happy and stuff like that. And people could just come in here and think that's the truth. And so they need to know about our struggle, about how we built this joint for free. But also in 1814, we wanted to be free so bad, we joined the British and burned down the Capitol. All we had to rebuild it for free. But that was during the War of 1812. So, you think about the fact that after the Civil War, we had over 1,000 elected and appointed officials down south, members of U.S. Congress, members of the Senate, Lieutenant Governor of Louisiana, Secretary of State in South Carolina, and sheriffs and parishes in Louisiana. And just think, if we would have kept all that with 40 acres on the mule, it was more Black folks than white folks in those days, because it was always more slaves than it was owners, because that was who was doing the work. And then the sad thing is you have situations like, people talk about reparations. One act is going to be I had a question recently. If we return the property that was taken from New Hope Missionary Baptist Church doing urban renewal, I call it Black removal, would that be reparations? I said, no, that would be justice. Reparations when you take care of all the Black folks who are descendants of the United States enslaved. And now, the word used to be, well, we don't know who they are. Well, Ancestry and 23andMe and with the records we have, we know who we are. Okay. And so, like I said, I have no hate on the Afghan people that tried to help the United States in that senseless, ridiculous war for 20 years that all the presidents should have ended. But at the same time, I'm not going to let anybody say, yeah, you helped us, so therefore we're going to do things for you. Yeah, we helped for 400 years, and all you're doing is taking away from us, including our right to participate in the democracy.
My guest again is Mr. Eddie Rye Jr. Mr. Rye, I'm almost out of time here, and I want, again, the most significant August 28th since 1963, the Rally for Voters' Rights, MLK Jr. Park, 2200 MLK Way South. That's this Saturday from 5:30 to 7. We're going to be live from 5 o'clock, starting at 5 o'clock. And if you show up, their masks are mandated. Social distancing is required. But if you don't want to challenge that, if you don't want to deal with that for the reasons that you have, you can certainly watch right here on Rainier Avenue Radio. You can listen on Rainier Avenue Radio. Mr. Rye, before you go, I got a minute or so left, and I want to make sure that I give you the opportunity for final words.
Okay, I appreciate that, Tony B. I just want to give Hayward Evans a shout out, who has done all the work on this whole program, and also Sade Moore, the chair of the MLK Organizing Coalition, will be co-hosting with me, and I'll be looking forward to seeing you and the crew from Rainier Avenue Radio, and we're going to be encouraging everybody that can to make it out. If you can't, like, it will be brought to you live by Tony B, so you don't have to miss it. But we got to get reinvigorated. We've got to stand up. It's not over. Our rights are being challenged. Our rights are being taken, and we in the African descendants of the United States enslaved community, we know how to get them back. We got to stand up. Like Dr. King said, can't nobody ride your back if you've been over. You got to stand erect and speak loud and be proud of who you are.
And even with COVID in place and the inability to safely gather, this needs to be figured out. My guess is Mr. Eddie Rye Jr. Thank you, Mr. Rye, for everything that you have done for our communities. It would take 5 shows for me to go through that list of things.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Thank you, Hayward, for all your work you did. We appreciate you.
And yeah, I want to say thanks to Hayward too. And Hayward was supposed to be joining us today, but I'll see you a little bit later. We'll be, again, don't forget the MLK Park. That's tomorrow. The Remembrance, a lot of great things going on. Awards being given away. Starts at 5:30. If you're not going to go physically down there, tune in starting at 5, and you get kind of a little behind the scenes early view of what's taking place. And we'll talk to some folks maybe in advance as well. Coming up, we've got Sydney Brownstone from the Seattle Times, who works specifically as a journalist about homelessness issues, and we're going to talk to her about well, as we enter into the fall and summer comes to an end, what's going to happen with people who are homeless in this city, and how is COVID affecting all of this? We'll be back right after this.
You know you can't get enough of Rainier Avenue Radio .world.
All of us have struggled through the COVID-19 pandemic, and many of our communities have been particularly hard hit. Some things definitely need to change, but a few things should stay the same, like protecting your child from serious diseases you can prevent now. Preventable diseases like measles, mumps, and whooping cough. Is camp, childcare, or in-person school on your family's agenda? Give your child a healthy and safe summer and school year by making sure they're up to date on vaccinations and well child visits. You have the power to protect. Call your healthcare provider to find out what vaccinations your child is due for and make an appointment today. If you need help finding a provider, visit parenthelp123.org or call the Help Me Grow Washington hotline at 1-800-322-2588. An interpretation is available.
Phil-Am Radio, servicing the Filipino and Filipino Americans all over the world. Phil-Am Radio, streaming live in the internet every Tuesday from 1 o'clock to 2:30 p.m. Seattle, USA time. We are your host, Kuya Bert Kawili, Emma Heron, and
Manny Panganiban.
Phil-Am Radio.
This is Mondo Bancaro for Mondo's World. We will be discussing some interesting subjects. Sometimes I might even have some guests. So please listen to my show on Rainier Avenue Radio.
Welcome to the coronavirus pandemic. I'll take coronavirus for 100. Fever, chills, shortness of breath, loss of taste or smell. What is stay at home and isolate? Correct. Coronavirus for 200. Inability to stay awake, persistent pain or pressure in chest, trouble breathing. What is seek immediate help? Correct.
Coronavirus for 500.
Crippling and potentially dead infectious disease eliminated the United States with vaccination.
What is the polio vaccine?
Correct.
I'll take coronavirus for 700.
The Daily Double! Should I take the coronavirus vaccine?
Wait. Hold up. This is not a game. It's time for serious discussions. We have coronavirus vaccines, but not everyone is comfortable taking them. Here's the facts. Based on what has been proven about vaccines for other diseases, COVID-19 vaccine may help keep you from getting seriously ill, even if you do get the virus. Getting vaccinated also may protect people around, particularly those at greater risk for severe illness from COVID-19. We don't yet have all of the answers. Get informed, talk to your healthcare physician, and make the right decision for you. This is a message supported by the Washington State Department of Health.
This is Rainier Avenue Radio .world.
Welcome back to Rainier Avenue Radio .world and our special broadcast of the impacts of the coronavirus on South Seattle and surrounding communities. It's me, Tony B. I am your host. If you are just tuning in, joining us very shortly will be Sydney Brownstone, and we'll be talking about homelessness, those who are unsheltered. As summer winds down and we start heading into fall, and folks get cold and they need to go inside, or maybe they don't. Find out how that works. If you're, again, just tuning in, earlier in the program, we had Pat McCarthy, Executive Director for the Metro League Seattle Public Schools Athletic Director. Sports will be taking place this year. You heard a little bit about that. You can go back and check it out. If you want to find out more in depth about what I'm talking about and how those mandates will impact and affect our high school students and their participation in sports. We found out last year that the mental health of students and student athletes who did not get to intermingle was a big deal. And so sports will take place this year, apparently come hell or high water. They're going to figure it out. Also joining us on the program was Mr. Eddie Raya. Hayward Evans was going to be joining us. Eddie Raya stepped in and talked to us about the upcoming, tomorrow, actually, Remembrance of the March on Washington. And he says this is the most impactful and serious one since that 63 one because of the gutting and of civil rights and voting rights that are taking place right now. So you can come down to MLK Park from 5:30 to 7. Will be brought. They'll be there. Their awards will be given. There'll be speakers there, and but if you it'll be socially distanced. But if you don't want to chance that, you can catch it right here on Rainier Avenue Radio. Starting at 5 o'clock, we'll be broadcasting live from the event. We'll be bringing you everything. Joining us a little later in the program, we'll be talking to Daniel Hennessy from Bird Bar Place about rental assistance. As you know, it's another thing that's coming up, COVID related. Right now, I'd like to welcome to the program Sydney Brownstone. Sydney, how are you?
I'm good, Tony. How are you?
Under the circumstances, Sydney, I'd have to say fantastic. Good to have you back again. Always enjoy having you on the show and you sharing us information and talking to us direct and straight, and that's how we get out. So I appreciate that. You may have heard me during the monologue prior to you joining me on the air talk about the remembrance of the March on Washington. Well, yeah, COVID has changed things. People would gather. There wasn't that impact of we're doing this during a pandemic. And so figuring out how to do these things, it impacts everything. So once again, we come into a fourth surge. Homelessness didn't go away. People are still unsheltered. I want to start, before we get into what's taking place now, what you see taking place in your crystal ball. What did we learn from 2020 regarding homelessness, folks who are unsheltered, and all the way up through and contracting, the disease and how it's dealt with, all the way up through vaccines and the distribution of vaccines to those who are unsheltered? What did we learn last year for our homeless and unsheltered community?
Wow, big question. We learned a lot. We learned, if we didn't already know, and plenty of people have been saying this for years, that congregate shelters are not a good way to keep people safe during a pandemic, but also just during peacetime, if you are lying on a mat on the floor 6 inches away from someone else, that's how diseases are spread. So the county had to learn really quickly how to get people into individualized shelter. And we learned that we could do that. A lot of people have moved into hotels. But we also know that people outside do not have access to those hotels. What happened is, a lot of people who were already in shelter got more individualized spaces and more resources, but people who were outside were kind of left to fend for themselves. We also learned that vaccine hesitation is real among people experiencing homelessness. Vaccination has lagged behind the general population. A lot of nonprofits are now saying that only 30 to 50% of their clients are vaccinated, and oftentimes it's just one vaccine if it's a 2-shot. So yeah, vaccination lags behind. We've also learned, I'm trying to think that, pending the end of the eviction moratorium, homelessness could become a lot worse. So I'd say those 3 things are kind of top of mind for me.
But before I get into the questions that I'm going to ask you about where we're at right now, someone who works with our homeless population, I was having a conversation with, and the question that I asked was, were they hesitant? Were people who were homeless hesitant? And why were they hesitant about getting shelter? And he said, you tell me what you think about this. He said, they're getting better at being unsheltered. And that was his take on it, is that they did not want to, in some instances, go to the places that you're talking about for a variety of reasons. They didn't feel safe, all the other things. So instead, they chose to become better at being unsheltered. What are your thoughts on that statement?
I mean, I think it's interesting. I think, one of the things we saw this year is that if you offer people...
And when I say better, you know what I mean? I don't mean like luxury or whatever. It's just out of the 2 choices, they're saying this will be my preference.
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to look at what those choices actually are, right? Because if you're offered a mat on the floor at a basic emergency shelter and you can't bring your animal, you can't bring your stuff, you can't bring your partner, and you don't feel safe there, that's not really a real choice, is it? I think one of the things we learned through the pandemic is that when people in encampments are offered a door that locks and closes, there actually isn't shelter resistance. At one encampment I was at last year under the I-5 overpass at South King Street and 8th Avenue South, most people who were living at that encampment said yes to hotel rooms when they were offered. And that idea of, service resistance kind of goes away when you offer people something that they actually want. As for people getting better at being unsheltered, I mean, if that is the choice that you feel is best for you, and it's the choice that, in a universe of choices, what does that say about the other choices? People are resilient. I don't know if it's gotten any easier to be unsheltered. I don't think it has. But I definitely think that when people are offered something that they actually want, that actually meets their needs, they'll take it. People outside aren't stupid.
Yeah, and I don't think the implication to me was that they're enjoying it more.
Mm-hmm.
It was just with the choices that were offered. That was thank you for responding to that. So here we are right now. Where are we at from your perspective or from your research, evidence-based research, with our homeless population as we enter into this 4th stage? And I'm thinking about a number of things. I'm thinking about the ability to find a safe place to shelter, to quarantine if that's what you need to do, to be taken care of and have your health taken care of if that's what you need to do, to get a vaccine if that's what your choice is, and just general information for people who are unsheltered or homeless who don't always have access to computers and technology and the latest updates on the King County, dashboard that a lot of people do. So again, I'm going to step aside, Sydney, and I'm going to give the floor to you at this point.
Yeah, where are we at with homelessness and the access that people have to healthcare and information? On the one hand, with homelessness kind of writ large, it's hard to say. We don't have great data on how homelessness has changed during the pandemic. I mean, I'm sure if you look outside the studio,
that's surprising.
Yeah.
And maybe I just don't know any better, but as quickly as we gather data on a number of different things, and I want you to go back to where you were. I don't mean it, but that's surprising to me that.
Yeah, our homelessness data kind of sucks. And it's part of it. It's the nature of homelessness. When people kind of hide away from society, they're harder to count. But basically, the Department of Housing and Urban Development relies on something called the point in time count every year to measure, estimate, and survey homelessness in any given region. And that count is almost always an undercount. We count all the people in the shelters. On the one hand, that's easy. The hard part is counting people outside. So, we'll use a formula where we go outside and we count tents and look at tents and kind of use that to extrapolate, bigger conclusions about the homeless community, and use self-reported survey responses to extrapolate about things people are experiencing outside or how they became homeless. And so that's pretty flawed, but, we didn't do that this year, 2021, because of coronavirus and the way that everyone was scrambling to deal with that. So we don't have even the point in time count numbers on homelessness. What we do have are some studies. You look outside your window, and I'm sure you'll notice that encampments appear to have grown, or they appear to have concentrated. And we don't know whether there's been a raw increase in the number of homeless people living outside, or we don't know if, people have just kind of come out of the woods to cluster around the few resources that have been left for them since shelters have limited their capacity and things like that. There was one study on the number of tents conducted showing that there was a 50% increase compared to pre-pandemic times. So that is one interesting count. Of course, when the eviction moratoriums end, that could significantly change. A lot of people are predicting an expansion in the number of homeless people. On the other hand, it's really interesting to look at because with the eviction moratorium, with the stimulus payments during the pandemic, there are a lot of people who have been given a respite from severe poverty. And so the overall number of Americans below the poverty line is expected to decrease this year. So it's kind of an interesting contrast, right? Where, overall, the number of poor Americans is expected to decrease. But for people who are kind of on that extreme end, the people who don't have homes or places to live, things have not really appeared to have gotten much better.
Mm-hmm. Again, my guest is Sydney Brownstone from the Seattle Times. Sydney, I kind of took it for granted that people knew what you did like I know what you do. And I just jumped right into this conversation. And this, once again, is great information. So I'm going to back up a little bit here and tell us a little bit about the work that you do with the Seattle Times, as if we're from Mars and no one has heard it before. Some of us have tuned in specifically just to hear you in these conversations on homelessness. But for everyone else, tell us what the work is that you do with the Seattle Times.
Sure. So at the Seattle Times, I report on homelessness with a team called Project Homeless. We are a team that covers homelessness. That's all we do. We're grant funded within the Seattle Times newsroom. So, there are politics reporters, there's a transportation reporter, there are education reporters. We're homelessness reporters. It's all we do. It's all we eat, drink, and breathe. So yeah, that's what I do for the Seattle Times.
And why did you choose this type of journalism, or did it choose you?
That's a really good question. I think that I became interested in journalism because of the principles I believe in and that I grew up with. I think that journalism has immense capacity to kind of right wrongs, if that makes sense, to expose injustice. And I think, one of my longtime interests in journalism has been writing about trauma and explaining how it impacts the body and the brain, and kind of exposing how it works in society. And I think that there's a lot of trauma in homelessness, and that's kind of how I became interested in homelessness, just the links between mental health and homelessness, and kind of societal injustice and homelessness. And yeah, so that's where my interest comes from.
Again, we talk about people moving indoors, and Sydney, after we're done talking, I'll be talking to Daniel Hennessy from Bird Bar Place about rental assistance. You brought up the eviction moratorium. Obviously, for this next conversation that I'm going to have, it's ultimately critically important for people who are going to have to pay rent, or come up with, in a lot of instances, rent they haven't paid for a year or more, and what's going to happen. And so in this job that you do now, your journalism work that you do now, I want you to include in this, as I say, moving forward, do you take a look at, oh, wait a minute, there may be a whole bunch of folks about to spill out onto the street because of the eviction moratorium, and in that process, when I'm asking you, okay, so again, just like last year when we talked about this, folks are about to move inside. That's going to change the game, and you kind of broke it down a little bit about that. So, with these things in mind, the eviction moratorium, the fourth surge, the things that we discussed earlier, what do you see happening as we move forward into the fall from your perspective?
Yeah, it's really hard to predict. One of the things that everyone was freaked out about at the beginning of the pandemic was, oh my gosh, there are going to be mass outbreaks in shelters. There are going to be mass outbreaks in encampments. And at least in terms of shelter outbreaks here in the Seattle area, we did not see the kind of massive outbreaks that happened in other places like LA and San Francisco. So that was a relief, but it wasn't as bad as some people were projecting. And then in terms of outbreaks and encampments, I don't want to say that they didn't happen, because we don't know. There are a lot of people who are sick in encampments with other issues, with COPD, with other respiratory illnesses. And frankly, coronavirus might not be on the top of their survival list. On the top of their survival list, it might be, how am I going to get food tomorrow, or where am I going to sleep without being assaulted? So I'm trying to hold open the possibility that it won't be as bad as, I read the coronavirus headlines and look at the data just like anyone else. And I'm looking at this Delta variant, and we know that it spreads easier, that it can be more severe. So I don't want to cause any kind of panic, but we do know that vaccination has lagged behind in the homeless population. So I can say with some degree of certainty that Delta will affect people who are unvaccinated and homeless, probably far more than the general population, which is by and large vaccinated here in the Seattle area. In terms of getting people inside, it's important to say at the outset, we have an affordable housing crisis. There is not enough housing for people right now. That's, everyone who's homeless, doesn't have a home, to people who are renting, to who really want to buy a home, to, people who feel themselves pushed out of neighborhoods every few years because they can't afford rent where they're at. So one, we don't have enough housing for everyone. It's just an issue of supply and demand. Secondly, we don't have enough shelter for everyone. But, even if you were to bring in everyone inside the shelter, they might return to the streets if there's no housing at the end of that. So, we're going into this season of, cold and flu season with not enough housing and not enough shelter. And those are the biggest deals right now. I think, what else? I mean, we do have a flood of federal money coming in. We still have to distribute rental assistance. So hopefully our leaders will spend that money wisely to get people inside to places that they actually want to be, that are safe for them. But it remains to be seen how that money is spent and how quickly that money actually gets out the door, right? Because, rental assistance is great, but if you can't access it to pay rent before before the eviction moratorium is up and your landlord evicts you, that's no good.
My guest again is Sydney Brownstone, reporter, journalist for the Seattle Times, specifically on homelessness issues. So at the beginning of this, I asked you, did we learn anything from last year? A couple of things that you said were that congregate gathering places, not so much. Places where people can go and be alone, better. People may be more inclined to leave an encampment if they know they can lock a door, in the place that they're going. So did we learn that? Are we now more prepared going into this fall? Because it didn't sound to me like that's what I was hearing.
Tony, I wrote a story recently looking at outcomes for a program that started last year called Just Care. And Just Care was meant to address encampments in a way that was different than the way that the city usually addresses encampments. So, usually the city will come along, give a big encampment 72 hours with police and with park staff, with social workers sometimes, or maybe they'll come along and see a cluster of small tents and say, you got to move your stuff immediately. But, those types of forced removals can be really kind of chaotic for people on the ground. And people sometimes are offered shelter. Usually it's kind of a basic shelter. Sometimes it's a tiny home, which people tend to want more. But the uptake on those options usually isn't very high. So Just Care, which is a collaboration among CoLead, which is the kind of pandemic version of LEAD, and REACH and Asian Counseling and Referral Service. The Chief Seattle Club used to be a part of it at the outset, but is no longer part of it, said, okay, well, what if we go into encampments? We don't give them a deadline to be out, like you got to move your stuff within 72 hours. We don't bring cops into this, and we offer them hotel rooms. And, I went along to an encampment. This is the same encampment I mentioned earlier at South King Street and 8th Avenue South. And people came inside. And I looked at before and after photos of the encampment, and, the encampment was gone. So that seemed to be a really important piece of learning, right? Well, okay, if we actually offer people individual spaces, they'll come inside. On the other hand, 10 months later, more than a third of those people who came in are likely back out on the street. They left the program either voluntarily or they were kicked out for safety reasons, for violating their lodging agreement, because they weren't engaging with caseworkers, yada, yada. Only 6 people got inside or got into permanent housing overall. So, I think we're looking at two things. What did we learn at the outset? We learned at the outset that if you offer people individual shelters, they'll come inside. But 10 months later, we've also learned that if there isn't a path to permanent housing at the end of that, you're just still cycling people through the system. So, I think that, as we go into another cold flu season, we have to think beyond just immediate shelter. We have to think, what is the long-term goal here? Is it just to clear encampments and have like a temporary respite from them? Because if you look back at South King Street and 8th Avenue South, the tents are back. Or are we trying to get people into housing? Are we trying to solve for homelessness, kind of the root issue? And I think until we address that, the root causes, we're still going to be seeing a lot of outdoor homelessness.
Cindy, we're almost out of time here. Great talking to you. I want to give you a chance for final words before we move on to Daniel Hennessy. And so just anything that you would like to say to our listening audience right now.
Oh, thanks. Well, I guess I just want to thank you, Tony B, for asking such great questions and having me on. I love that that you're digging into this in a deeper way. And yeah, I guess my appeal to people listening is, check out the Seattle Times if you want to. Read our stuff. It's at the very least, if you're having a spirited debate on homelessness, you can come armed with some statistics and figures to kind of back you up, or maybe challenge you or challenge your family or friends. Stuff here is really complicated. It's not easy. And at the same time, it's also incredibly simple and straightforward, right? I keep talking about we don't have enough housing. We need housing. So, I just appreciate your willingness to chat with me today and dig a little bit into this. And I applaud you for the service you're providing to your community.
Well, I'm okay with shameless self-promotion. So how can they go back and read and find some of these articles that have been written and that you've written?
Yeah, well, if you just Google Seattle Times, Sydney Brownstone, my byline will pop up. You can click on my name and you can read the articles I've written. Or if you search Project Homeless Seattle Times, you can click on that page and it'll show you all the Project Homeless articles, and you can start there.
All right. See, that makes it easier. Let's just give them the information. And Google Sydney Brownstone, click on read some of the articles. And then what was the other piece of information that you gave me for people?
Or Google Project Homeless Seattle Times.
Google Project Homeless Seattle Times, and then you can get that information. Thank you again, Sydney, for joining us. I appreciate the open, honest, frank conversation. And we'll have you back again, maybe October, November. And we'll do another check and see where we're at, and just appreciate what you bring to us, Sydney. Thank you.
Appreciate you. Thank you, Tony. Take care.
We'll be back with more of the coronavirus impacts of South Seattle and surrounding communities. Our guest will be Daniel Hennessy from Bird Bar Place, and you just heard us talking about homelessness. Now we're going to be talking about rental assistance, which we just heard from Sydney. This could be something that spills over into the homelessness situation. We'll be back with Daniel Hennessy to try to get some information for you. In particular, this is going to be critical as the eviction moratorium is about to expire. So we'll be back right after this.
Here with the Rainier Avenue Radio Traffic Update. You can listen to us in your car 24/7 anytime by downloading the free TuneIn app. Once you do, search Rainier Avenue Radio. And remember, do not curse out your fellow drivers. This has been your Rainier Avenue Radio Traffic Update.
This message is brought to you by Public Health, Seattle and King County, the Washington Department of Health, Washington Chapter, AAP, and Within Reach. No matter where your classroom is, whether in person or online, routine vaccinations protect your child from serious diseases like measles, mumps, and chickenpox, and they keep your child safe, healthy, and thriving. Need help finding a provider? Visit parenthelp123.org or call the Help Me Grow Washington hotline at 1-800-322-2588.
This is Monique Lee from the Afternoons with Monique show. I'm also the owner of Seattle Love Broker, a relationship consulting and matchmaking company. Tune in every Thursday afternoon at 1 p.m. to listen to intriguing, informative, and entertaining guests share stories of their past and vision for the future of our community.
Different rules apply when it gets this late. You know what I mean? It's like after hours.
Whatever gets you through the night, it's all right.
Hello, I'm an unpaid spokesman for DJ Sotovaci. I'd like to invite you to listen to his free-form music show. It's popular music the way it was never intended to be heard. Whatever gets you through the night, late nights, here on RainerAvenueRadio.world.
Whatever gets you through the night.
This is Tyrone with God Is, and the inspiration of gospel music also on RainerAvenueRadio.world. We give out free food each and every Saturday from 11 to 2. And so we want you to come on out and support us when we love on your community. And we also have a fish fry once a month. We want to raise funds, put back into the community. And so come on and support us. We need your love. And also, if you want to be connected with us, go to RainerAvenueRadio.world. To the website, Facebook, Instagram, and God Is. And as God Is got a website, we need your help, community. So come on out and get your free food each and every Saturday it is. And so we asking for donation, whatever you feel to give from your heart to the mind. And as we doing it right here for you, go to our website and touch love and give back. And so come on by 810 23rd Avenue. Rainier Avenue Radio.world, your community radio station, the inspiration of all the things we do in your community.
Rainier Avenue Radio, your community radio station will provide you with more information. Rainier Avenue Radio.
Welcome back. Rainier Avenue Radio.world. A special broadcast of the impacts of the coronavirus on South Seattle and surrounding communities. Full show for you today. If you're just tuning in, earlier we talked with Pat McCarthy, the Metro League Athletic Director, Seattle Public Schools Athletic Director, about sports and high school sports this year, which apparently, come hell or high water, are going to take place for a number of different reasons. If you missed that show, you can go back and go back on our platforms and take a look at it. You can go into our archives and take a listen to it as well. Also, joining us was Mr. Eddie Rye Jr., and we were talking about the Remembrance tomorrow, which is taking place for the March on Washington. It's the 58th, and Mr. Rye and the MLK Committee feel that this is the most significant and important march. The remembrance of that march for civil rights and voting rights, as he feels as though our voting rights and civil rights are being eroded and gutted. And then during this process of the pandemic, when people can't isolate, and even at this event that's taking place tomorrow, you're going to have to social distance, wear a mask. How has pandemic impacted and affected civil rights? That's one of the things that we talked about with Eddie. We just finished talking with Sydney Brownstone of the Seattle Times, Project Homelessness reporter and journalist, and always participates with open, honest, frank conversation about where we're at in that regard. And the conversation also, is going to segue into this conversation that we're having right now. We are going to talk to you about rental assistance, but with the eviction moratorium lapsing, this could result in more unsheltered folks, more folks becoming homeless. And one of the critical things is, how fast is the money going to get there? How much patience will landlords have? And then those who are renting homes, some of them are in desperate straits as well. So anyway, having said all that, I'd like to welcome Mr. Daniel Hennessy, housing assistant. Welcome to Rainier Avenue Radio. How are you?
Good. Thanks for having me on, Tony.
Good. A little bit of background about yourself. You mentioned that you joined Bird Bar Place last summer as a client advocate in the Energy Assistance Program. And over the program season, you worked directly with clients applying for, and I don't know what these acronyms are, man. You're going to have to explain to me, lad. This is all, it's above my pay grade. LIHEAP, LIHEAP. What is that?
Sure. That's the low income heat and energy assistance program. So that's just for like utility bills.
I think you froze up. You froze up for a second. You froze up.
Sorry
for a
about
second. Give me that LIHEAP again. What was that?
Sure. It's the low income heat and energy assistance program. It's for utility bills of all kinds. So
and PSE help.
Puget
PSE
Sound
utility help, like Puget Sound Energy. I
Yep,
guess,
exactly. It's the same thing, just for PSE for gas bills. Mm-hmm.
Okay, you know how these acronyms can be, man.
I know. Sorry about that.
Yeah, sometimes. So I just try to explain it so folks like me will understand what I'm talking about.
Sure.
And when the emergency rental assistance applications began to be distributed a couple months ago, you shifted your focus entirely to housing, and now spend your time communicating with clients, landlords, and ensuring that these grants make it out into the community. That's exactly what Sydney and I were kind of talking about and wondering the efficacy of this program. The program is, again, another one of these acronyms, the EPRA program, King County's Eviction Prevention and Rental Assistance Program. Eviction, I hope you don't have to remember all this stuff to the eviction. I mean, it's cool. I get it, but okay. The Eviction Prevention and Rental Assistance Program. We just get so many of these programs run, but with all these names, but I realize you got to shorten it down. But that's what it is. King County's Eviction Prevention and Rental Assistance Program, which got federal coronavirus response. Anyway, I'm not going to say all those acronyms anymore. I'm just going to have a basic conversation with you. Let's start with this. What is the Eviction Prevention and Rental Assistance Program? Let's start with that. What is that?
Sure thing. Yeah. So we actually the program that we're administering at Bird Bar Place is a little different than the King County Eviction Prevention Program. In that the main difference is our contract. We're only allowed to serve folks in the Seattle area, in the Seattle city limits. There's similar programs, but I would probably best speak on our program, on the Seattle program, and just point folks to the King County Eviction Prevention website for the most up-to-date information on that specific program.
Well, that's good information to know, so that folks who need assistance can get what they need to do. And Bird Bar Place this program is specifically for Seattle. So how did Bird Bar Place become engaged and involved in the rental assistance program?
Sure. So when the city of Seattle received these funds, this first round of eviction prevention funds, they went out to look for organizations like ours that have been working with the community for a while and have the infrastructure to sort of be able to distribute these funds directly to clients, existing and new clients of ours. So they approached us with some funding in this first round. They gave us about $1 million, and we're on pace to distribute that here in the next month or so. And just recently, we're in the process of acquiring some more funds. We're not exactly sure how much yet, but we're in the process now. So,
okay, and I'm going to give you a chance here to just talk without me bombarding you with questions. But there's in setting the table, what is the eviction moratorium what is that? What does that mean for eviction moratorium? What is that?
Sure. So the eviction moratorium, there's been a kind of some confusing mixed messages coming from sort of all levels. The moratorium basically states, as it stands now, that folks can't be evicted. This is from the Washington state, that folks can't be evicted as long as they're in process of receiving one of these grants or one of these rental assistance grants like ours, or are in sort of communication with their landlord about paying payment plans and that sort of thing. Now there's some I would encourage folks to do their own research as well, because things have been changing a little bit. The state moratorium is due to be up at the end of September. However, there is a federal moratorium that was put in place a little while ago that is still in effect, but we're not sure when that will be up. So I would encourage folks to do some research into as things change, what they're looking like for their specific situation. But for now, the best thing to do, I think, would be to seek out some of this rental assistance and let your landlords know that you're doing so.
We're going to be talking more about the rental assistance program, and my guest is Daniel Hennessy, housing assistant. Again, just setting the table here to give everybody an opportunity to find out what we're talking about. Daniel, who's Bird Bar Place? What does Bird Bar Place do?
Sure. Yeah. So Bird Bar Place is an organization. We've been around for a long time, much longer than I've been there. It started in the 60s. It's been serving the Central District of Seattle since then. It's gone through a few name changes. It started off as the Central Area Motivation Project, then Centerstone, and now Bird Bar Place. The programs we offer are this rental assistance program.
I want you to keep going. I'm just gonna throw a blast from the past for some old people. The Campfire House. That's gonna be. Does that ring a bell to you? Yeah. Yep. Anyway, keep
the Campfire House. Exactly.
Go ahead. Keep going now.
Sure. Yeah. So the firehouse is still around. It's going under renovations for this year. So we're in a temporary location for now, but we'll be back in the firehouse next summer. So it's still around. But anyway, so Bird Bar Place, the services that we offer, we have a food bank at 420 East Pike Street. It's open Tuesday through Thursday. So folks can come by and if that's if that's something that you'd like to do, come on by. I'm there most days to help out with rental applications as well. And we'll have somebody there. Our other program, this energy assistance program that we spoke about a little bit at the beginning of this is also going on. And someone will also be there who can speak to you about that. So those are our main programs. We also have a community connector that she's wonderful. She can connect folks to other resources in Seattle. And I'm sure I'm missing something, but those are kind of the main programs that we have that come off the top of my head.
Daniel, this time goes by really quickly, and I can fire questions at you, or if I don't like what you're saying, I can definitely give you some questions to answer. But I want to provide you the time here to share what you think is important for our listening and watching and listening audience to know about the rental assistance program, to start from wherever you want to. We've talked about some things, talked about the moratorium. We've talked about, again, the ability to get these funds to people, in a timely manner, the different types of programs that are available out there, the state and then the federal, and it's all really confusing. But at the end of the day, we're talking about, people and homes and families and homes and people who may end up unsheltered or homeless. And again, we just talked with Sydney Brownstone about that situation. We're talking about landlords who haven't been paid or in a bad situation. And so I just want to give the floor to you right now, Daniel, to start from wherever you want in this conversation about rental assistance, so that you can share information with people out there who need your assistance, and then the other group of people out there who don't know what's going on. It's not a world that they're familiar with, but it's part of our community.
Absolutely. Yeah, I appreciate you saying that, and I appreciate you giving me that time, because there are a few things that I'd like to just flesh out some of the details of our program a little bit, just so folks can have an idea of kind of what we're doing. And hopefully will reach out to us with any questions or just apply directly. So our program it's like I said, it's folks in the Seattle city limits. So if you live within the city limits of Seattle there, you can apply to our program. The website, all of the information that you'll need if you want to look it up after this, is birdbarplace.org/helpwithrent. And it has kind of frequently asked questions and all that good stuff, including the link to the application and a downloadable paper application that you can print out and fill out and send in to us as well. Just so we get it out front, the eligibility criteria, other than living in the Seattle city limits, you have to be renting an apartment and be able to provide like a lease document, a current lease document for that apartment. And you have to demonstrate either have qualified for unemployment, had a reduction in your income over the last year during COVID, and can demonstrate a risk of housing instability. That all sounds complicated, but what that basically means is as you go through our application and fill out these, there it is, fill out these required forms, just make sure that you check the boxes that say, or explain how the coronavirus has impacted your housing situation or your income situation. And that's good. That's good enough for us. The required documents, then we'll let you know on the application here what to upload. It's pretty straightforward. If you have income documents from the last month, you can provide us with those. If you don't, just attest to the fact that you can't, and that's okay too. We can move ahead with your application without it. And then we need a lease as well, and your landlord's contact information. And so that's because we'll be getting in touch with them directly for sort of details about payment and that kind of stuff. And it's pretty quick. I did it yesterday, and it took me about 10 minutes just to go through like a test one. And once you do that, you'll get placed into our queue of applications, and we'll get to you sort of as soon as we can. We're working hard at getting through the queue as fast as we can. There may be, I would say, to build in a month or 5 weeks until payment is actually issued, but we'll do our best to get in touch with you about your application before then as well. And yeah, what also I forgot to mention, another of the eligibility criteria you have to be at 80% or below of the area median income, which means just basically you have to make under $65,000, about $65,000 a year for a one-person household is the eligibility criteria, and then beyond that, everyone can apply and receive up to 15 months of rent assistance on application. So,
all right.
Mm-hmm.
I'm giving you some space here. If there's some more you want to add about what you do in the program.
Yeah, I can keep going. I just don't want to sort of overload with details because I know that can get kind of boring. But yeah, so basically, what will happen? You apply. We'll reach out hopefully within a couple of weeks just to let you know if you're missing anything on your application, and then we'll reach out to your landlord. And if your landlord can get back to us with the information that we need, we're good to go. We'll process it, and that's good. What's cool about this program, though, is that if your landlord doesn't get back to us within 3 contacts or doesn't want to work with us or anything like that, you can still receive these funds. These are still your funds. We would just then directly pay the rent to you. So that's great. And then if you qualify, like I said, it's 15 months, up to 15 months of past, current, or future rent. So, we pay all of what your back rent would be. And then depending on how many months that would take up, we would be able to, in sort of 3-month increments, pay future rent. So it's a really great program. And, we really encourage everyone who could use this to apply because we want to be able to get this money out as quickly as possible. So that's it. Yeah, that's that.
My guest is Daniel Hennessy, housing assistant for Bird Bar Place. We're talking about rental assistance, the eviction moratorium. At least the state is going to, that goes away at the end of September. I heard you mention something about the federal, and then with this 4th surge, who knows, things may even change again. And so a couple of questions here, Daniel. You said you enter into a queue system. So that sounds like first come, first serve. First come, first serve doesn't necessarily always match up with need. And your need may be immediate. And I think that we can easily think about a number of different reasons that I don't have to theorize here about why someone's need may. What about that individual whose need for housing assistance is not now, right now? Do they get ahead of the queue? Do you recognize that? Is that something that at this point you go, well, we're not set up for that. Fill out the application as soon as you can. Again, you know how we get down on Street Beat. If you don't know, now you know. We have open, honest, frank conversation because we're trying to give people information in our communities that need help and need assistance. So, this is not an infomercial. Again, what if your need is now?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, that's a great point. And we are set up for that. We do have sort of criteria that we'll sort of sort the applications that come in based on certain criteria. And one of them is if folks have received like a 14-day eviction notice or something like that, or any notice at all from their landlord, they should get in touch with us and let us know. Or state that on the application, and they will be prioritized for processing. And then another of our criteria is, so I mentioned that you can be eligible if you're 80% of the area median income, which is $65,000 or below. But we're prioritizing folks who are at 50% or below. So we do have these sort of in place, these criteria in place, and we're actively sticking to that. So it's not just a first come, first serve, though we do recognize that, it can be frustrating if you apply, before someone else and don't get it. But we do have sort of prioritization criteria.
How does, there's just such an issue right now about being vaccinated, those who aren't vaccinated. Maybe this has nothing to do with the rental assistance program, but because it is and has turned into this political hot button, Are there any requirements about being vaccinated, being unvaccinated? Does that factor into this program at all?
Yeah, it doesn't. We don't even ask. So nope, that's not something that we're concerned with for this program.
All right, my guest again is Daniel Hennessy of Bird Bar Place. We're talking about the rental housing program. And so the big question to everybody, you know, and you may not have a silver bullet answer for this, how long does it take to get the money? You know, whatever the circumstances are, you may have a landlord, you know, bearing down your back. You may just be like talking to your landlord and saying like, you know, I want you to get this money, because there could be, you know, essential and critical, you know, needs on both sides of that, and there may be no silver bullet. How long does it take to get the money?
Sure, that's a. I wish I had a silver bullet answer. It depends on the situation. If we have all of your documents and your landlord is responsive and they can give us all the documents out front like that, it'll be much quicker. I would say within the span of a few weeks, we can hopefully send out payment. That said, if turnaround is
what does a few weeks mean to you? For some folks, a few is 30 weeks. For some folks,
Sure.
a few is 3 weeks.
Sorry, yeah, that was vague. I'm gonna say 3 to 5 weeks is the span that we're kind of looking at right now. Though, like
and
I
that's
said,
from the time you initially fulfill your application, and your application is taken in.
That's it. We do try to get in touch with folks before that. We do our best to get in touch with folks before that, just to let you know where the application is and all of that. But I would say better to build on the longer end, 3 to 5 weeks to be able to issue payment is the range. I wish I had a specific date or something like that, but that's what I got right now. So
we appreciate this service being available, Daniel. Quickly, one more again, just recap very briefly what the service is and how folks can get in touch with you to apply for the service that you're providing of rental assistance.
Sure thing. Yeah. So the service is if you've had some difficulty at all paying rent over the last year during the coronavirus pandemic, this is a service for you. It specifically would be able to pay up to 15 months of rent. That's past rent, current and future. And so if that sounds like you and you live in the Seattle city limits for our program, I encourage you to apply. And if you live outside of the Seattle city limits in King County, take a look into the King County Eviction Prevention program. They do have something similar running. I don't know the specifics as well, but I would encourage you to take a look into that. There is assistance available, and we're working our hardest to get it out as fast as possible, but it is available. So please reach out. And if you want to contact us directly, it's all on our website. The contact information is all on our website, including my email address. So if you have a question about the program, then please reach out, and we'll do our best, to help you out in any way that we can.
Daniel, I got about a minute left, and I want to give you an opportunity for final words here. Anything that you'd like to share with our audiences right now?
Sure. No, I really appreciate you bringing us on here. Like I said, we're trying to reach as many folks as possible. I won't say that every single applicant. I don't want to make promises that we can't keep. So I won't say that every single applicant will be eligible for the program. That said, our main goal in this whole venture is to help out as many folks as possible. So please be in touch with us, and we're here to help as best we can.
Daniel Hennessy, housing assistant, Bird Bar Place. Rental assistance is available. The eviction moratorium, we lifted it in September. If you need help and you need assistance and you live in Seattle, right?
Yep, Seattle. Mm-hmm.
Bird Bar Place. Check them out. Thanks for listening to another edition of the impacts of the coronavirus on South Seattle and surrounding communities right here on Rainier Avenue Radio.world. We had a bunch of stuff going on, and we're in the community. Saturday, tomorrow, we have the live from Clean Greens Plaza. Make sure and join us for that for that event. And find out. Well, first of all, stop by and pick up some free food. All right. We've got vegetables direct from the farm that'll be given away to you. And then we're going to also have our free food giveaway. And so we'll be doing the same thing, giving away meat and dairy products and fresh greens. So stop by there and do that. And then it's also going to be an opportunity to find out more about farming and green living and eating healthy and getting your hands dirty and growing your own food, and talk to some other folks in our community who do that and how you can participate in the Clean Greens Farm and market place. We'll be there live from 1 to 3 o'clock. So check us out there. We're broadcasting live. But wait, there's more. Then we're going to go live from the MLK Remembrance of the March on Washington that happened in '63. Again, the MLK committee wants everybody to know that this could be the most significant remembrance of that event, since it actually happened with the attacks, or as Mr. Rice says, the gutting of this voting rights bill, and trying to do all of this during a pandemic. So again, 1 to 3 at the Clean Greens Plaza right there at on 21st, I believe, and then also at the MLK Park. We'll be there from 5 to 7. The event itself is 5:30 to 7. So either way, if you want to participate but you don't want to get out, you can watch it right here on Rainier Avenue Radio.world. And then finally, I guess I'll just remind everyone that September 4th will be our first game, our kickoff to high school football. Rainier Beach takes on Mount Tahoma. You can tune right in here for that game as well. That's it. That's all the time I have. That's going to do it for the kid. It's me, Tony B., your host of the impacts of the coronavirus on South Seattle and surrounding communities, saying, remember, whether you believe you can or whether you believe you can't, you are probably right. I'm out. Peace.